Hello everybody and welcome back to another not applicable Formula 1 video. I hope that you are well. I hope you enjoyed Baku. And if you're a Formula 1 fan and you didn't enjoy Baku, you are in the wrong sport. It was absolutely phenomenal to watch. It was incredible over the course of this weekend. The drama, the action, qualifying, the race. Oh my goodness, it was beautiful. I'm going to dive straight into it. First of all, I want to say thank you for 600 subscribers, and I want to thank you so much for all of the comments over the last few days. I try and answer every single comment, so if you've got a comment about Baku or if I miss anything throughout this video, please leave a comment down below and I will more than happily get back to you. It's been crazy. This channel's growing amazingly well, but we must talk about Baku, and I'm going to start off talking about Charles Leclerc on pole. Crazy. It was ridiculous. Let's look at the standings. For qualifying, Leclerc, Hamilton, Verstappen, Gasly, 4th, Sainz, 5th, Norris, 6th. Where's Bottas? Miles out of it. Vettel not in the top 10. I was gutted for. Tsunoda having an incredible qualifying session apart from when he ditched it into the wall. 4 red flags over the course of 3 sessions. None of the sessions actually finished. It was insane to see. And I saw quite a few people saying that Ferrari got lucky again with a pole. I think they were just super clever. At what point, after 3 red flags, does it not sort of come into the fruition in your mind that there might be another red flag in Q3? I mean, surely you just go out there and set an incredible lap to start off with, and if you can improve it later, absolutely well done. Charles Leclerc went out, did an incredible lap, did it properly, set a really good time, and everybody else looked like they were sort of doing winding up laps. They were getting ready. They were going to leave it to the crunch right at the end of the qualifying session. Charles Leclerc was like, no, I'm just going to go out. I'm just going to put myself on provisional pole. And then if there's a red flag, I'll see myself on pole. And of course there was. There was another red flag because it's Baku and because we got 4 red flags, put himself on pole. Genius. I thought it was absolutely incredible from Leclerc. And I felt really sorry for some of the other drivers that did miss out. I thought Stroll was going to have a better weekend than he did. I thought that Russell was pretty lucky to get into Q2. Showed his quality, though, after not having the car ready for ages before we got into at the actual qualifying session. But let's move into the race. So, first of all, and something that people are not talking about in the slightest, is the fact that Ocon got dropped out of the race really early on. I felt really bad for him. He's having such a good season in that Alpine car. He's been consistently picking up points. And it was one of those races where, as you're going to see, this was an opportunity for Alpine to get some real heavy points on the board with people like Verstappen, Hamilton, Stroll not finishing. And they just didn't take that opportunity. They just couldn't quite take that opportunity in the same way that other teams did. And I felt really sorry for Ocon because, let's be honest, he's been in and amongst those points with Gasly, with Vettel, with Stroll. And if Ocon could have got a podium in the same way Gasly did, he'd have had absolute elation around him. I know maybe it's not quite comparable. Gasly started 4th on the grid, but I felt really bad for Ocon. Then, of course, we had all of the action at the front of the grid. We had Hamilton leading the race. We then had Verstappen leading the race. Obviously, Leclerc started leading the race. We had Perez leading the race for a little while, just until people came around for their pit stops. We had Stroll leading the race for a little while when people again were coming around for their pit stops. Crazy to see. Literally insane start to the race. And Hamilton got it all wrong in the pit stops. Again, I don't really know why people aren't talking about this more. I think they got it completely wrong in Monaco, and you could say they got it completely wrong again. Yes, this one was less in their sort of ballpark. The fact that Gasly was coming down the pit lane as Hamilton wanted to be released, they couldn't really do too much about. They probably hadn't planned for that to happen, but losing out to Verstappen and Perez in the pit stops for Hamilton, and he just could not catch up with those Red Bulls. He couldn't quite get it together once he was behind those Red Bulls. And I think if he would have got out of the pit stop, still been in first place, we'd have been looking at a slightly different race. Then we obviously had the Stroll incident. Stroll hitting the wall. Pirelli have got a lot to talk about and a lot to stand up to, because Stroll hitting the wall because of a tyre malfunction. The second time he was in the wall over the weekend, obviously it started 20th. Oh, sorry, it started 19th because Giovinazzi hit the wall as well. Mental. And 2 red flags in that first session. But again, Stroll in the wall, safety car. And from the safety car, we had a really crazy start again. We had Leclerc and Gasly and Norris all fighting with one another. It was just beautiful to see Vettel getting in front of Leclerc after the safety car. Wow, what an incredible race we saw. The safety car caused absolute bedlam. We had Verstappen, Perez, Hamilton, all fighting for position behind the safety car. It was so good to see. And then, of course, we had the Verstappen incident, which just put another spanner in the works. Verstappen looked comfortable. It looked like an easy win for Verstappen. Once the safety car had gone in, he drove off into the distance. Perez and Hamilton were having a little bit of a battle, but Verstappen looked to be absolutely clean sailing through for the win. And then again, the Pirelli tyres. I actually said on stream, are people not a little bit worried about what they've just seen from Stroll? And then as I said that, 10 seconds later, Verstappen is in the wall. I don't want to say I jinxed it, but possibly I jinxed it. And we saw another red flag for the weekend. And also a standing start with 3 laps left to go, which I think is absolutely incredible. I think we should have this at more races. I don't want to see the red flag incident with Verstappen, but I do want to see more 3-lap races because it was insane. Hamilton driving off on the first corner, the magic button being pressed and his brake bias being way too far forward. I think it was gone from like 50%, something like 85% of his brake balance was in the front wheels. Just ruined it for himself, drove off the road and managed to finish 15th from a position where I thought, honestly, he was going to win the race. I thought he was going to overtake Perez into first corner. He's incredible from the start, Hamilton, and he just drove off the track. And I can't remember being more shocked watching a Formula One race than just seeing Hamilton drive off. He's so consistent. He is Mr. Consistency. There's so many races. I think it's been like 45 races since he's finished outside of the points and still finished the race. Mental. He is so incredibly consistent. It's insane to see. But he just drove off. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. One, because I was elated for Vettel. Secondly, because I'm a massive Gasly fan. And he'd suddenly put himself in the podium positions. And that was how it finished. Perez from Vettel, from Gasly, and I was absolutely hyped. And Gasly more than deserved that, by the way. That move on Charles Leclerc in the last lap of the race was sweet as anything. It was absolutely beautiful. If you haven't seen that Gasly move, go and see it. It was insanely good. It was so good. And this is how we sort of ended up with the race then. We had Perez, Vettel, Gasly, as I've just said, Leclerc in 4th, Norris 5th, Alonso 6th. And that's what I mean. If Ocon would have been there, Alonso has already said that he is struggling with this car in comparison to Ocon. So where could we have seen Ocon? Maybe 5th, maybe 4th. If he would have been pushing it, it would have been really nice to see. Tsunoda in 7th. I did say before the weekend started, I saw this being another points finish for Tsunoda. So I would like some clerical errors, some critique on my predictions, yes, but that one I got absolutely spot on. Then Sainz finishing in 8th. Ricciardo, so lucky to be in the points. I'm going to talk about McLaren in a bit, but Ricciardo, what a terrible weekend. I know he got 2 points. I know he ended up finishing in the points. But again, what a terrible weekend. Driving into the wall, putting himself out in Q2, and then a bit of a nothing race, wasn't it? I can't remember an incident or I can't remember anything with Ricciardo really jumping to mind where it came to fruition for him. He looked like he was on the pace or not. It was just sort of a bit of a nothing race from Ricciardo, and he was lucky that people who probably would have finished in front of him, you know, Hamilton, Verstappen, didn't finish the race. Otherwise, again, we'd have seen Ricciardo out of the points. Similar thing with Raikkonen, actually. Raikkonen probably didn't deserve that point, but it's nice to see him get a point because Giovinazzi got a point too. So Alfa Romeo putting themselves just those 2 points ahead of the guys behind and sort of shuffling into that position. I don't think we're going to see Williams and Haas pick up many points, so they're putting themselves in a very strong position there. In terms of the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship, though, it looks very, very different now to what it did beforehand. Obviously not at the top, but we've got to talk about Bottas dropping down to 6th place. Another awful weekend for Bottas. When it rains, it pours for Bottas. I've seen some things actually saying that he had the high downforce wing. why? Why on earth would you put Hamilton on the better wing than you would for Bottas? Like, surely you just put them on the same, because clearly Hamilton's was so much quicker than Bottas's. Bottas's pace was absolutely atrocious and dropped down into 6th place. Didn't finish inside the points. Got Perez in front of him now, Norris in front of him now, Leclerc in front of him now. Can Bottas actually say that he's in a title fight? I don't think so in any way whatsoever. Even Perez looks a little bit far off for me at the moment, and he's only, 32 points behind Lewis Hamilton. And I still think he's too far away to really challenge for the title. So Bottas is completely out of it. Carlos Sainz, really good to finish in the points, considering he drove off the track at one point, finishing the race in 8th place, picking up some points and just putting himself nicely in 7th. Gasly picking up a massive haul of points. Vettel picking up a massive haul of points, putting themselves 8th and 9th. And Ricciardo dropping like a stone to 10th place. If you compare Norris to Ricciardo, yes, Ricciardo is still picking up points, being consistent, but Norris is just absolutely flying at this point. And I don't know if we can really talk about Daniel Ricciardo without being negative at this point. 6 races in, you're seeing Carlos Sainz doing really well. You're seeing Perez winning a race. You're seeing Vettel finishing 2nd for Aston Martin. All of these drivers moving to new teams. What have you seen from Ricciardo this season so far? I love Daniel Ricciardo, but it's tricky. It's tricky to say that he's been having a good weekend. I'm going to talk a little bit about Ferrari, because I think Ferrari have settled themselves into 3rd place in the Constructors' Championship, and I'm quite happy to see them there. I think they actually deserve it. You've got 2 poles for Charles Leclerc. He didn't manage to start the race for the first one. Yes, you could put that down to Ferrari's error, but I think they deserve it just that little bit more than McLaren, just because Leclerc and Sainz as a team have been so much more consistent than Norris and Ricciardo. And I think we're going to see that over the course of the season. Unless Ricciardo really steps up his game, Ferrari are going to make that 3rd position in the championship theirs. Then we'll talk about McLaren a little bit. I know that I've just covered Ricciardo. Norris, another great race. He looked a little bit slower than usual. He looked like he didn't quite have 100% of the car together, especially when people like Vettel and Gasly are finishing in front of him. And, he's been consistently finishing in front of them at this point in the season. But not too bad for Norris, and he can't complain. He's 4th in the Drivers' Championship, for God's sake. He's done incredibly well for himself. 6 races into the season, I don't think many people would have Norris that high up. I don't think they'd have Norris with 2 podiums to his name. So he's doing exceptionally well. To finish in 5th again, pretty good weekend. Ricciardo, I need to see something better from him next time out, personally. Otherwise, it's just not for me. AlphaTauri. They just found a way to make it work. Gasly is so good, isn't he? I've been saying Gasly consistently has been so good in qualifying. And Bahrain, he was so good in qualifying, and then it just didn't come together in the race. In Imola, he was so good in qualifying. It didn't come together in the race. He just needed a race like Monaco, where he qualified, finished incredibly well, was really consistent in front of Hamilton all weekend. And then this weekend, he just consolidates that. God, Gasly, put him in a World Championship car for me, please. He is so incredibly good. I just absolutely love him. And whilst he was having a good weekend, Vettel was having an even better one. Again, got the pit stop perfect. Vettel absolutely smashed the pit stop. And I didn't realise that was going to be such a determining factor for him. Not only that, though, he managed to pass Charles Leclerc on the track. He was so quick. He was so quick. And are we seeing this revival of Vettel? A little bit of the old Vettel ways, tenacious. He goes into corners with real intent to go past the driver in front of him. I absolutely loved it. And I felt a bit sorry for Stroll. Obviously crashed in qualifying, crashed in the race as well. There really wasn't anything he could do about crashing in the race. And I wouldn't have been surprised if he got in and amongst the points without crashing out in the race on Sunday. So a little bit unfortunate for Stroll. Alpine, as I said with Ocon at the beginning, yes, Alonso picked up 8 points, but when Vettel's picking up a podium, Gasly's picking up a podium, and you're in amongst those guys for the Constructor Championship, those 3 teams have really sort of built themselves that little bubble in the Constructors Championship. And when Gasly and Vettel are able to take AlphaTauri and Aston Martin just that little step further, and Alpine look like a little bit further behind now, it's going to be tricky for them to catch back up again. They need another good, solid few performances from Ocon and Alonso to be able to narrow that gap down, especially when Tsunoda has started to look like maybe he can finish in the points a little bit more consistently, even if he did crash in qualifying. But, I mean, everyone crashed this weekend, so it's fair enough that you crash at least once over the course of the weekend in Baku. I've talked a little bit about Alfa Romeo. Not really too much to say. Kimi Räikkönen picking up another point. I think they've put themselves nicely in 8th place in the championship. Don't think they're going to get anywhere closer. Don't think they really need to look that far behind them though either. Williams. Oh no, it's Haas. I keep forgetting that Haas have managed to jump Williams in the championship. And that's actually because, if we look here, Schumacher with a 13th place finish. Yes. 4 cars didn't finish the race. But a 13th place finish for Schumacher is not too shabby in a Haas car. And can I see them doing better than this season? I think they're going to need another race where it just goes absolutely mental. But a great finish from Schumacher in 13th place. Even if there was a bit of an incident with Mazepin at the end. If you haven't seen that, it's well worth checking out as well. Literally, Mazepin goes up the inside of Schumacher, and Schumacher is so taken aback, he just laughs at him. It's kind of weird to see, actually. It's an atrocious move from Mazepin. But I think Mazepin had an alright weekend all in all. Yes, his pace wasn't there, but he wasn't one of the ones that smashed into the wall, which I think most people were expecting him to be. And then finally, we talk about Williams. And I mainly put this shot in here because the castle is absolutely beautiful. But you can just about see George Russell at the bottom there. And Williams had a bit of a non-weekend. It didn't really happen for them. George Russell again getting into Q2, showing his quality, but in the race not really being able to do anything in particular of note for myself anyway. But that is my rundown of the race. And of course we have to say Sergio Perez. Wow. An incredible win. His second win. He more than deserved it. He is the king of Baku, isn't he? He's just so good. Him and Vettel, actually, are the kings of Baku. They just always seem to get it together when it comes to that track. But I'd love to know what you think of this race in the comments down below. Is this the best race we're going to see this season? I think it's definitely going to be in there. Maybe in the top 3 already. And actually, we've had quite a few good races already. We've had Imola. Bahrain was really good. This was really good. It's going to be difficult for this season to continue on this trajectory of incredible races, but I'm more than up for it if it does, especially watching live with you guys. It was so good to see all of you in the comments and obviously talking to you live through the live streams, watching the qualifying, watching the race. If you want to get involved, it will obviously be the weekend after next. We are doing another live stream for the French Grand Prix and the French qualifying. Make sure that you subscribe and knock on those notifications so you know when I'm live and you can come and join in with the chat. Thank you so much again, and I will see you next time.